there's a lot to be said about saying no, because when you say no, it's going to help you live a cleaner life and not a cluttered life.
Welcome to the Adriana Ostapenko podcast. I'm here with a good friend, Danielle Chaisson. It's so good to have you here, my friend.
Hey, Adriana. Here we are. It's awesome to be here. Thank you.
Always bringing the party. I love that. Thank you so much for coming. I've known Danielle for quite a few years now. We've been in each other's lives. She's a good friend. We were just catching up before we started here. It's been so fun to watch you grow and take off. And you've always been, really high achiever. But it's even more fun to witness firsthand all the growth, all the pivoting, all the experiences that you have brought to your life, all the scale in the last couple of years. So looking forward to diving into it, and you can share your expertise with the team. I will pass it off to you and let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, so thank you so much again, Adriana, for being here. You're right, we've known each other for the last few years. We've grown together both personally and professionally, and it's just been really, really a pleasure and an honor to watch you grow as well. I mean, you're talking about my growth, but girl, you have come a long way, and we have talked about that as well. So I just want to give you a shout out to, and here you are with podcasts, always moving forward. So yeah, about me, Danielle Chaisson, I'm a real estate investor. I started out with flipping, moved into multifamily, and while I was doing that, when I was flipping, I was also doing conversions and just kind of growing. As you know, Adriana, you start out down here as a real estate investor, and then you just slowly go up the ladder. And yeah, went into multifamily. All the while, though, I was doing some coaching. So doing what I was doing, I was getting asked to speak a lot. Then people started saying, hey, can you mentor me, coach me? And I was doing some coaching, but I never really took off with structuring a platform, which was my bigger vision. I'm like, hey, you know what? Like, I really love, enjoy helping people. And it really fills my cup. I can't even explain it. Like, it is just so fulfilling when you have a student and you're guiding them and you see the growth that they have and that you had a small part of that and you get a front row seat to that. And so I wanted to do more of that. And at one point, I talked to my partners about really, instead of doing one-to-one, I wanted to do one-to-many and creating a platform where we could do that on a larger scale. So we decided throughout COVID, we decided to wind down the portfolio. And because I was very involved, as you know, Adriana, I'm the working partner. I was the one that was very involved in managing the properties, the projects, and whatnot. And I said, I can't do this as long as I'm doing that. And so I decided to step away from real estate, kind of back off of that a little bit so that we could create this online platform, which is an education platform for entrepreneurs and real estate owners. So essentially, we niche in entrepreneur. We target entrepreneurs, but we have a niche in real estate. Obviously, that's my expertise. But really, what people are asking me for more and more these days is business training and business guidance. And so that's what we do. We do have a niche in real estate, but honestly, like, I'm training somebody right now, coaching somebody right now, and I'm like, they have a real estate coach. I'm like, keep your real estate coach, because I don't want to spend my time teaching you real estate. If you already have somebody doing that, let me focus on your business for you. And so it's the best of both worlds, honestly. And I'm really excited to keep building this over the next 18 to 24 months, and then come back into real estate with a whole new vision when I come back into real estate. So things have changed. I mean, you've seen me go through these transformations over the last few years. I mean, I've pivoted a few times, and every time you're reinventing yourself, boy, is it ever painful. And you've done it too, so you totally get it. It's painful, but that's part of growth, and that's why they call it growing pains.
Yeah, I remember, and I don't know if you remember this, I picked you up. We were heading somewhere downtown for a dinner or something. This was, I don't know, a year and a half ago or so. And you were just like full on in the planning stages of strategic success consulting. And you're like, I'm going to share this with you. I'm not really sharing with anybody, but let me show it to you. This is what I'm creating. And you pulled up your phone and you were sharing like the passion and the like vision was so clear in your mind. And this is how you know something is going to come to fruition, when it's that clear, it's that passionate. It was the first thing that came out of your mouth. You were so excited about it. So it's so, so fun from my perspective to see it come to reality, all the impact that you're having in people's lives. I've seen the events you've been putting together, incredible, so much education, so much value giving to people. So congratulations on all of it.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll tell you, it hasn't been an easy road. Back then it was just a vision, and you're right. I was passionate about the vision. I'm as passionate now about it as I was back then. And maybe even more so now, because now I'm starting to really get fired up and see the potential of where this can go. And I always knew it was there, but when you start seeing it come to reality, it's just a whole nother level. Like, it really is next level. And now we're doing strategic partnerships with other people in order to like continue to grow and expand so that we can really deliver a bigger service to people.
So what were some of the learnings you had? You said it hasn't been easy.
Wow. Okay. So technology is probably one of the hardest things. But honestly, you know what? At the end of the day, and I've always said this, like, the people like Donald Trump really irritate me because, and you know this too, I mean, you and I have had this conversation before in private, like, people like Donald Trump piss me off because like, I built this by myself and I did this all by no, you didn't. No, you did not. Like, it takes a team, and it has to be a great team to help you build an empire. You just can't do it alone. And whether that's a real estate portfolio or whether it's an amazing business, if you want to grow it and build it, scale it, and impact as many people as you can and reach as many people as you can, you really need to have a solid team behind you, not just to help you grow and implement and see the fulfillment on the back end, but also when something goes wrong, Adriana. I mean, you just talked to me about an injury that you had and had to back off, but your business kept going. And that's an amazing feeling. I just got off of 10 days of doing nothing because I had COVID again. And, I was horizontal and couldn't do anything. And my team was there. They were there behind me 100%. And I didn't have to worry. And really, the team is just critical. And not just to help you through the hard times like that, but also to help you find the answers that you need when it comes to, like I said, technology, just building the online platform at strategicsuccessconsulting.com. That is our learning platform. It was a monster to build. And I am so, so, so grateful for my business partner who took the lead on that. And he leaned into the team that I created and put in place in order to put that together. And you know what? Like, it can be really hard and frustrating at times. And this is where you talk about resiliency, is where, you have to sometimes, and you do this in real estate too, we built an entire website. We had someone else build it for us. And at the end of the day, we ended up breaking that down. And my business partner, Bryce, went and rebuilt the whole thing all over again. And sometimes you have to do that. And the same thing in real estate. I mean, sometimes we look at deals and we pay some money to do due diligence and we get reports from professionals. And then we got to walk away from that investment in order to make the right decision. And so sometimes you have to make hard decisions, but at the end of the day, really what you want to do is make a decision and keep moving forward. Even if it's the wrong decision at the time, make a decision and keep moving forward. And then it will become very clear if you're on the wrong path and you need to pivot. But if you're just trying to wait until the right moment to have everything perfect, it'll just never come. So I guess there was a lot there to unpack. I mean, your team is massive. Lean into your team, trust your team, empower your team. Always keep moving forward. So keep making decisions to move forward. Don't sit, don't wait, keep moving forward. And ultimately what started this all is learning to say no. I had to say no to real estate so that I could focus on this. And I think a lot of people want to say yes to everything, especially entrepreneurs. And you really have to learn to say no so you have room to stay focused on what you want to get done, what you want to achieve ultimately.
Yeah, so good. So many things there. I have a saying that I use, a philosophy that I use for myself and my teams is, I'm good with good enough. This is good enough. Let's move forward. I have to be good with good enough. Otherwise, to your point, you always pausing and nothing's ever good enough to be put out there. I'm like, this is a forever improving ecosystem here. We're never going to stop growing. We're never going to stop improving. Is it good enough for today? It is. Let's go. We'll get better. We'll get even better at it tomorrow. What happens when things are just feeling really hard? Like whatever situation you put yourself in, you're like, I'm feeling like this just really, really hard. How do you find resiliency in those moments?
Well, I'm an extrovert. And so extroverts talk things outwardly. And so I think it's very different for everybody, depending really on your personality type. So for myself, I'll lean into the team and I'll talk it out. And what I have to be careful with, and this is what I'm starting to be a little bit more public with, is it's easy for me to shut down and go into, because I have dealt with depression since my teenage years. And so I have to be very mindful that I don't shut down, because when I get overwhelmed, when things get too hard, I tend to kind of close the world off and I just almost just hide. And it's very unproductive. It's very unhealthy for your mindset. And so having a support system and people that you trust that you can lean into and say, look, I'm struggling with this, or I'm having a hard time with that. And I'm very, very open with the team. They all know this about me. And even like outside people that work with me, for example, my realtor, if he's calling me and I'm not calling me back, or sends me a text message and he doesn't get an answer within, a day at most, he knows something's up. He's like, okay, something's up with Danielle. And so he'll actually reach out to my assistant and say, hey, what's going on with Danielle? Is she okay? And like these things with having amazing people around me kind of fuel me to say, you know what, like these people love you and you're not alone. It's okay. Let's do this. And so I have days where I do just shut down. But I think the biggest thing, and this is what I learned in therapy, was it's okay to trip and fall. And so if I need a day to myself because I'm feeling overwhelmed, sometimes it feels like I'm failing, I'm not good enough, I can't do that. Like all of that self-talk can come into your head. But ultimately, you have to flip the script and say, you know what, Danielle, you've been going very hard and you deserve downtime. And that's the one thing that I still struggle with is I don't schedule downtime. I don't give myself time to like rejuvenate, recover. And I really should. And I know I should. It's really frustrating when you know you should and you don't do it, because it's like your intellect, you're like, hey, I know that I should be doing this and I don't. And then I just crash. And so I'm still always working on that. And that's probably one of the hardest things. However, what really gets me through it is, number one, the ability to be compassionate, to answer your question, the ability to be compassionate to myself when I am struggling, say, you know what, it's okay. Take the rest of the day off or take the evening off, just shut everything off. And I will tell you, just put your phone aside and take a break. For entrepreneurs, we're on it 24/7. So if you're not scheduling those breaks for yourself, then you need to just shut it down once a week for a few hours, or whatever you're comfortable with. And it has to be just slightly more than what you're comfortable with. So if you're comfortable with 2 hours, shut it down for 3 and do something for yourself. And that's a time when you just fill your cup back up. You know what I'm saying? And so the ability to be able to shut down, to trust that my team will support me in that, to be able to talk it out with my team. And I'm also learning how to ask for help. So when I'm starting to struggle a little bit, asking for help and learning to delegate better. I think I delegate okay, but I still am too much in the weeds of things. And I'm really learning to grow into that role of CEO of my own business. It's something I still struggle with because I just want to see everything, want my hands on everything. But now we're just getting too big and I can't. And so I have this new rule. You're going to laugh at this, Adriana. I have this new rule in my office now. And it's not a rule, but it's an understanding. Let's call it an understanding. So if Danielle looks at you and says, don't bother me with that shit, that's me trying to learn to let go. So, we kind of made a joke and a funny thing about it. It's like, okay, so now I'm starting to learn, like, not everything needs my approval. I have to let the team make decisions. And so when it's something that's minor enough, because I don't want to bottleneck everything. So when it's minor enough and they come to me, now I'm like, okay, you know what? Don't bother me with that shit. So when we're looking at marketing pieces and they need approval for some marketing pieces, whatever, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? It's okay. Just don't bother me with that shit. So, and then, that's my way of kind of letting go a little bit and empowering them and learning to really say no. And again, coming back to what I said, even just building strategic success, I had to learn to say no. And building this company and continuing to do that, I can't do everything. So learning to say no is actually healthier for my mental state. So, and it helps me through getting through those hard times.
I want to circle back to a couple of things you said there. One was around negative talk, negative self-talk. That is back to what I said earlier. This is one of the things that I realized through my self-development journey that I've been working on so intentionally, that allows me to stay overall in a more positive mindset, was cutting back on that self-negative talk. I think especially as women, this is more prevalent within us to be just hard on ourselves and being our biggest critics. And I implemented a philosophy a while back now, a few years back, that's helped me immensely. And it is, how would my best friend talk to me right now? And if I can't be my best friend, then nobody else can. I am the person that talks to me the most. I want to talk to me always as if my best friend is talking to me, which I am, and started to shift that, because then I imagine my best friend in front of me and she'll be like, what are you talking about? You're amazing. Look at all the things that you're doing. Look at how grateful, how amazing your life is. Look how many things to be grateful for, and look at the positives. And I know that's the things she would tell me. So I'm like, this is what I need to be telling myself, that keeps you moving. The other thing I was going to say was in terms of delegating, circling back to that. So as you know, I co-own Turnkey Virtual Agency, and we help small business owners, really niched on the real estate industry, to scale their business. That's what we do. We come in and we offer services from sales and marketing to general admin and EA services, to finance services like bookkeeping, and fractional CFO services to HR. So we kind of come in and say, what do you need to help scale your company? We can help you with different services. The number one outlier to who becomes successful at hiring and delegating and growing their business the quickest is entrepreneurs that can let go. That's literally the number one outlier that we see. Entrepreneurs that come in and want to keep a lot of control and micromanage everything the VAs are doing, will just bottleneck the whole growth of their company. The moment they're able to let go and be good with good enough, they see the growth and the success and the development of their businesses. So really well said.
Yeah.
Tell me.
No, I was just gonna say it's so true. Honestly, I just love I love that you use the word bottleneck, because honestly, if there's any bottleneck in my business, it's me. And it's frustrating as hell. And so, yeah, coming up with a fun way to deal with that by saying, don't fucking bother me with that shit. It's okay, now it's okay, that's my way of letting go, instead of going, oh, I really should, so I just kind of reframed it to make it kind of a fun way. And that's another thing too, Adriana, I just want to mention, business doesn't have to be hard. And it doesn't have to be a grind, and it doesn't have to be serious all the time. Even the networking events that we're doing, it's, hey, yeah, we're here, we're learning, we're networking, but let's make it fun, because we don't have to go into a conference room and it be stuffy and then pretentious, because then you're not true to yourself. Have a little bit of fun, relax, and then you'll enjoy the ride. And then you're also in a better vibration. We talk about vibrations a lot, you and I. You're in a better vibrational state in order to handle things when shit comes your way. I know I'm swearing a lot today, I'm sorry, but when I get passionate, it's yeah, it is what it is. Let's just call it out, right? It's crap. We just don't like the stuff thrown our way. But when you're in a higher state of vibration, then you're in a better mental state to be able to deal with that. So yeah, let's go, let's have fun. And so that's what we also do. And that, the whole, don't bother me with that shit is just kind of a fun way to say no instead of no, which is so negative.
I love that. Keeping fun and enjoying life. I mean, that's number one. That's why we're doing all of this for. Very cool. How do you maintain work life and health balance, Danielle?
Oh, well, that's always a struggle. It's a struggle for everybody, right? And so I'm really bad, and I'm working on this. I'm really bad at kind of putting boundaries between my work and my life because I love what I do. And so for a long time now, I'm starting to realize, okay, I don't want to function like this anymore. And it was okay for me for a while. It didn't bother me. But now I'm starting to realize that I want to have boundaries and separate my personal life from my work life. And so now I'm starting to create that. One of the things that I'm doing, and again, it's just kind of as you elevate and you grow as a business owner, as a CEO, like you really need to start putting things into place that maybe weren't an issue before. So now what I'm doing is I've mapped out kind of a skeleton of my calendar of what I want my calendar to look like so that I'm actually only working during certain times. And so if I can have that, then it makes it a lot easier when somebody is asking for my time, because then I can say, oh, I have these time slots for these types of meetings, and I have time slots for these sorts of things. And so that way it's easier too for me. Like, I don't know, I think we spend a lot of time. I'm sure I'm not alone with this. I know I'm not alone with this. And a lot of people can identify, like, when there's so many people that are reaching out and, oh, can I, do you want to meet? Let's have coffee and talk about this, or let's have a Zoom and talk about that. And so now I have the skeleton of my calendar mapped out. It's like, okay, these are the days where I can make it work. And if it's important to you, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to fit within my mold because I have to protect my mental health and my personal time with my children. And so, ultimately, I'm working on that. It is always a challenge. And the one thing is just to make your health a priority. And what's been difficult for me is building out my calendar and saying to people, no, you have to fit within my calendar. But ultimately, it's like putting yourself first. And it's okay to do that. Because if I put myself first and my health first, I'm going to be in a much better state and place to be able to help others. And so I have to keep reminding myself of that because it feels very selfish, which is very difficult for me. But ultimately, you don't want to make too many exceptions. You put these things in place. It's like you don't want to compromise yourself. Like, you just don't. Like, if you're saying you're going to work out 3 times a week, you know what? Dedicate that time for yourself and just do it. And it's not selfish. Like, for me, that's what I struggle with. It's feeling selfish. For other people, it's like, oh, well, if I work out, then I won't have time to get this done or that done. But ultimately, all of the stuff that needs to get done will get done. It will. And you just have to have faith that's going to get done, even when you're making time for yourself. And so, as uncomfortable as it is, you just have to say, you know what, I'm going to do this. And what I tell people who struggle with it is like, look, give it a shot. Give it an honest shot. Say a month you're going to work out 3 times per week, because I know you think everything else, you're going to let the ball drop on these things. Well, give it a shot and then see what happens. And if you're right and you can't manage anything and your world goes to shit, then okay, you can always go back to how you were. Or you can make a small pivot, shift it a little bit, maybe twice a week instead of 3 times a week, whatever it is. But I think it's really important to put your health first before all else, honestly. So your health and when I say health, I mean physical and mental health. So always making time to make these small adjustments. And what I do in order, those small adjustments, I look at what works for other people. And coming back to the phone, one of the things that I didn't even realize that caused me a lot of anxiety, just a small shift. And I have a friend to thank for this. It's like, you know what? Tone down the volume on your phone, for example, so that every time it dings, it's not so high. And just that will help you not feel so anxious that you have to like answer it right now, right? It's so minor. Or put your phone on vibrate. I mean, I used to go to networking events or meetings, and you know this, Adriana, I always have my earpiece in my ear, always. So it was always going off in my ear. Like, you just have no idea. People have no idea. It's in my ear, and I hear everything that was ringing through my ear, and the volume was high. And so like making a big shift of like stepping away from that, turning down the volume, saying, you know what, it's okay. Like if I get to it within a couple hours, I get to it within a couple hours. Even if it's a day, it's okay. And then so I've practiced that, and honestly, that has made a huge shift for me. And then if I start feeling my anxiety going up, if my phone volume is on, I'll just mute my phone, and it just changes like that. So just small things like that, but really like making those shifts. And I'll tell you what, like it was really hard for me to do that, to kind of step away from my phone, because I just thought like I work on my phone. Everybody they reach out to me on my phone. Like it's really important to me. But at the end of the day, your world won't fall apart. So I had to kind of step away from my phone, kind of test the theory, and I realized it's okay. So now I'm okay doing that. Yeah, little things.
I love that. Like honestly, so all things that I've experienced myself, from what I realize is the more I'm my number one priority, period. And that's not selfish. My number one job is to take care of myself so I can be showing up and my very best. The number one thing that I can do for anybody in my life, my kids, my husband, my teams, is to be taking care of myself, is to be developing myself, because then I'm always showing up at my best. And that's really all that takes to that. And it takes time for that. Like you said, you do have to prioritize that. There's no other way. So I've been tweaking my calendar, and honestly, it's changed and shifted a million times. And I'm not sure that's ever going to change. I realize now, because I thought I'm just going to at one point get to the perfect calendar setup. And then, I will. And for a few weeks, that will work really well. And then I have to shift it again because something else came into my life, or something left my life that's no longer taking place in my calendar. So I'm better now to be like, okay, it's forever going to be a changing, evolving, just like anything else in my life and my business will be my calendar. But I do really live by it, in the sense that I keep structuring it in a way, and it's based on how I feel every day. If I'm living my life every day and I'm feeling pretty good and I'm feeling fulfilled, I'm feeling happy, and I'm feeling excited, I'm like, okay, this is a good day. I can see that this works really well. Whenever I'm like going with my calendar in a way that at the end of the day, I'm grumpy, I'm unhappy, I'm miserable, I'm too tired, I'm feeling burned out, I'm feeling stressed, I can't shut off my brain. I'm like, okay, there's something that's got to give here. So I kept like adjusting my calendar to the point where I realized I wanted to be able to not have any official meetings after 3:30 when I pick up the kids at school, because now I want to spend some time with them. I'm making dinner, like I'm taking them to places. We go to the gym, we do homework, like we have life things that we have to do. And I always end up doing a work something or another, but nothing that is on my calendar that will require that attention if I choose so not to. And that's been so conscious on my end, how to structure my businesses in a way that I can actually do that. And it's been trial and error, and but that makes me happy, and it feels like a better balance in my life. The other thing I realize is, the more I want to say successful in some ways you become, the quieter my life has become as well. When you're talking about like toning down the even the dings on your phone, because my mental space is everything to me. It's literally everything. So I end up saying way more no's than yeses. I put everything on mute on my phone. I don't get notifications at all, because I figure like I will go check. First of all, the team checks, but I'm like, I'll go check when it feels important. If something that's been ignored for weeks, there was just no place for it in my life or my business. That's a realization that I have. So I realize it's a change I need to make. So
I'm seeing a pattern here. And I don't know, Adriana, if you're picking up on this at all, but like there's a lot to be said about saying no. Because when you say no, it's going to help you live a cleaner life and not a cluttered life. And that's really difficult for a lot of people like myself, yourself. I mean, we're A-type personalities. We like to do a lot of different things. I don't know, like for me, they call me like at work, here, like my team is like, you're a tornado. I just go and I just create this mess. I'm just like, I go in and I just want to do everything and so much. And so I create this huge mess, and, the team is behind me and they're just trying to pick up the pieces and make sure that everything is working and functioning. when I started implementing and throwing a whole bunch of stuff at them, right? And so, but I can't do everything. And there has to be a no. And there has to be a lot of no's, because what happens with no, and this is what a lot of people miss, is that what happens when you say no, then you're leaving room in your life for something great. But if you say yes to everything, and you're saying yes to everything, not everything is great. Everything is maybe good that you're saying yes to, but not everything is great. But if you're saying yes to everything that is good, then when something great happens, you may not have the room in your life to accept it. And so the more no's you say, the more greats you can have in your life, the more yes greats you can have in your life.
Yeah. So with that, part of like sifting through that is only moving towards opportunities that feel like an immediate, excited yes. You know, whenever something like comes into my life and it's like, it's just a no-brainer, it's just such an immediate yes. I'm like, okay, well, we'll take the next step forward and see where that takes me. But I'm being self-aware enough to know what that voice inside of you is telling you, to know what you know so far and be aware. Because if your mind is so cluttered, you can't even hear yourself think. You can't hear your real true self, inner being think, or your guidance. You're not really in tune with what your guidance is telling you. So this is where the quieting of the mind comes in too. Meditation really helps with that in my case. But ultimately quieting down all the exterior stimuli that happen so that I can hear what my inner being saying, what my inner guidance is telling me to do here, and being able, because what I realized doing leadership, the more clear I am with my vision. I'm a visionary just like you. I have about 100 ideas a day. I can't help it. I always think big and world domination style. My team laughs at me. They're like, okay, here she comes. But I'm like, the more clear I realize that I can be with what is the vision that I'm pursuing today? What is the most exciting? What is the most right? What is the most, fulfilling and impactful? The more the team has clear direction and they feel better. They're like, okay, good. We know where we're going. Thank you. Thanks for that clarity. Because the moment I'm spewing out 100 different things at them, they're just as confused. And they're like, how are they feel like, where do I take this from now? Like the more clarity that I can have, the better of a leader I am. So again, constant working on myself to have that awareness. And a huge part of that is quieting down.
Yeah, 100%. I would absolutely agree with that. And when you have so much going on in your head because you got too many projects or too many things on the go, it's really hard to even just clearly communicate to your team, because you've got so much going on in your head that to you think it's clear when you're saying something or articulating something, but you're short on time, you're trying to be quick, and then you're not able to really explain in a way that somebody else who's not in your head can understand, right? Like you think it's clear, but for them, it's really not. And so you're 100% right. Like having the no's, not having too much going on, it can, and I struggle with this. Like, I mean, I feel like a hypocrite saying it, honestly, because I have so many different things on the go. And like, I've had my team say, okay, let's put this on hold so that we can, and I'm like, no, we can do both. Like we've got people dedicated to that, people dedicated to that. But again, like, that's where I fail on the leadership side, where I continue to grow is like, okay, you know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe we'll just hit the pause button over here and listen to the team and really and help me guide them. And I think it's hard for a lot of people to be able to do that because they feel like, no, they're the leader. They're the ones that call the shots. And that's where ego shows up. And that's really important. If nothing else, like in business, you really got to set your ego aside, your pride aside, and really keep an open mind and be able to pivot when necessary in order to make the right decisions. And I think people who are egotistical, they don't see it because their ego it just doesn't allow them to see it. And that's one of the hardest things. But for me, I'm able to set my ego aside. Sometimes it takes a minute or two to be able to like digest that my ego is showing up and say, okay, you know what? Like, yeah, it doesn't always have to be your way, Danielle. So, sometimes I just need to set that aside and I need somebody to show that to me. But I think everybody has a little bit of ego at some point. But the better leaders and the most successful people have learned and mastered how to navigate that and how to keep a handle on their ego and not have it show up and hold them back and make bad decisions because of it.
Yeah, I just had this conversation with Anton last week because I had an experience with a team member, and I said, so funny, like the ego came out, and I find myself, I'm not an overly egoistic person, you know me, but it comes out for everybody. And something that I had implemented a while back was I don't respond to anything unless I'm really sure that, like, yes, certainty of the answer. I give myself time, like, hey, thank you. This was a great call. Let me steep into it. I'll give back. I'll come back with some thoughts. I give myself a lot of permission to do that. I give myself, the team members, permission to do that, because sometimes you're just receiving, you need to process. I could feel emotions that I'm like, I don't even fully know what they are, but I don't have an answer right now. So let me take a step back. By thinking it through, I realized it was the ego. I'm like, this person came in. Ultimately, they have a lot more experience than I do, and it felt threatening. And again, this is all happening momentarily, and I didn't even fully have the chance to process until I took a step back, and I'm like, that's what I was feeling like. And I'm like, ultimately, that's the crazy thing. Leadership. I want people that are much better than me at every possible position in my team. But it could feel threatening, and it could feel like you're losing control, or it could feel like it's no longer your thing, or whatever it is that may come up as a reaction. And I had to work on that. I'm like, what a silly feeling to have. And that's not a feeling I choose to keep with me, or it's not a belief that I choose to carry forward. Because I do want the best for the business. So there's very little place for ego in business, because it's a team effort. It's there's no other way to put it. Business is not a lonely, it can be lonely, but it's not meant to be a lonely journey. It's meant to be a team journey that takes you and builds momentum over time, and it creates massive impact. And it will look colorful as opposed to one colored. If you're just doing it yourself, it's going to look colorful, which may look bit different than what you were expecting, but in the best way possible, because everybody has a chance to put their own color into it, and their input, and their own creation, and their own skill set. So
I love the way you said that, because ultimately, what resonated with me, what you just said there is, you want it to be your thing. When you're a business owner, it's your handprint, right? It's your fingerprint on the business. And when somebody comes in and says, no, we should maybe take this direction, you're like, but wait, no, that's not me. That's not the direction I would take. And that's ego that shows up, right? So and again, coming into business and building a business, there's a balance between what you want and what the market wants and what's best for the business. And you have to constantly be weighing all these three things. Like, what do the clients want? What do I want to provide? And what is best for the sustainability of the business? Because ultimately, if you're not doing what's right for the business itself, then it's not going to work long term. And then, nobody wants a business that's going to go belly up, right? And so, but your ego does show up, because it's like, no, this is my business. I want it to feel and look like me. And maybe that's not what the market wants, right? Or maybe you just need to make a little adjustment to yourself or to your vision in order to really pair the two together with what you want to give and provide and what the market wants. And then that'll create sustainability, right? Ultimately. And so it is a challenge. It's definitely a challenge, but kudos to you to be able to have that reflection and even just be vulnerable enough to say, yeah, you know what? It even happens to me. I'm not an egoistic person either. And I don't like to think that I am, but I do know it shows up. And so when you have that awareness, then it makes it a lot easier to be able to identify it and navigate with it. Because ultimately, ego is there for everybody, maybe more on some than others, but it's there for everybody. And the more you learn to manage it, the easier it becomes to manage, because then you start identifying with it and you learn how to work within it. But if you're going to be so egoistic that you're like, no, that doesn't happen to me, well, then you're always going to struggle. Like at the end of the day, you're never going to learn how to manage it, and you're always going to have a struggle. Like, and then you'll be butting heads with your team. It's just going to be difficult. You're going to be butting heads with your staff, your not just your team, but your clients as well, and whoever you're serving, because you always want things your way, and your way maybe isn't always the best way.
100%. Again, just based on our experience with turnkey, it's so clear to see the ones that are like in a way to success and how fast they grow. That's the outlier, is can you get yourself out of your own way? And that's really all there is to it. How much are you here for yourself or for the actual business? What are you trying to grow here? The ability to self-examine, be self-aware and understand that anything that happens in your business needs to change here first, needs to come from here first, makes a massive difference in how big a business will grow, how fast it will scale, how many team members are delighted to join your business too, because they want to join in an environment where they feel like there is growth, and even the owner or the visionary is changing and adapting and humble and can see their mistakes and can get out of their own way. And then it becomes fun and it becomes like exciting to work there. We can talk all day. This is not like every time you've called me in the past, we're on the phone for at least a couple of hours. So we can keep going. I'm going to start winding down. I have one last question for you. If you had the world's attention for 30 seconds, what would you tell them?
That's a great question, Adriana. And honestly, like if I could have a megaphone and I could just shoot a message to the world, it would be lead with your heart. Lead with your heart. Honestly, like when I say that, I don't mean like make emotional decisions. It's not what I mean. What I mean is because there's no room for emotional decisions either in relationships or business, and business is all about relationships. So like in your personal life or your professional life, you really have to manage emotions for success. And if you want to have successful personal relationships, it's the same as professional business relationships. You have to manage those emotions to be able to really learn to compromise and talk things through and communicate clearly. That's not what I mean. I'm not talking about emotions when I say lead with your heart. When I say lead with your heart is to be true and genuine to yourself, right? So many people make decisions based on what they think is the right thing to do rather than what they would like to do. And I have a rule and a principle that's basically very simple. It's this: as long as you're not hurting others, then whatever it is that you want, there's nothing wrong with that. So lead with your heart. If you're not hurting others or damaging relationships or whatever it is, like I'm a Catholic and the 10 Commandments, I respect others and all of that. So stay in integrity always, but lead with your heart and be true to yourself. And you can never go wrong. And the reason why that is because when you lead with your heart and you're true to yourself, what happens is you will attract your tribe. But when you're being disingenuous and you're trying to please others and you're doing things for others, or you're doing things because that's what you think you're supposed to do, then ultimately you're going to find yourself in situations with people that don't mesh well with you. And for a short time, it'll work because you're constantly, being the person that you're supposed to be around these people in order to fit in. But over time, that is all going to show up and it's not going to be pretty. And I've seen it both in professional relationships and personal relationships. And so that's why marriages break down, because you start acting the way you think you're supposed to act with a person, or you start molding yourself to fit into that person's way of life instead of just being genuine to yourself. And it just doesn't last long term. And so it's hard as well to have inner peace when you're not true to yourself. And so lead with your heart and lead with love. That would be, what I would blast out to the world if I could, have a message out to every single person on the planet. Because when you lead with love and when you lead with your heart and take care of yourself as well in the process, you just can't go wrong. Can't go wrong.
I love that. That's an amazing way to end this conversation. Thank you so much. Where can people hear from you? How can they get enrolled in your strategic success consulting?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of different ways you can find me. Obviously, you can, the easiest way to send me a message would be on Instagram. That's at Danielle.Chaisson. I'm sure you'll have it in the show notes, Adriana, but I'll spell it out. It's at DANIELLE.CHIASSON. That's my Instagram handle. You can find me on all the social media platforms if you prefer a different platform. Or you can check out the website, which is www.strategicsuccessconsulting.com. That is our online learning platform. There's lots of free information there as well, and some free content. You just have to create a member portal, which is absolutely free. Just create a portal and you can sniff around, see what's there. And yeah, there's a contact us page on that as well.
Amazing. If you're looking for a business consulting and coaching, real estate consulting and coaching, don't hesitate to contact Danielle Chaisson and Strategic Success. I know there's so much value here, so much information. If you're wanting to move forward with your real estate career, growing your business, give them a call, book a consultation with them, and get enrolled. Thank you so much, Danielle, for joining. I appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing you again very soon.
Always a pleasure chatting with you, Adriana. You're right. We could have kept going for another hour or two, because once we dive into the stuff, I mean, it's like a time warp. We just keep talking and talking about it. It's something that I know you're passionate about, and I know you're always helping other people as well, and always helping yourself. And that's the one thing that I appreciate the most about you, is you invest in yourself first, and then you share that with others, and you lead with your heart. So I love you, and I thank you for the opportunity to be on your podcast.
Love you too. Thank you. Don't forget to subscribe and share this episode, and turn on your notifications for more. We'll see you all soon. Thank you.